My beloved child, stop for a moment and listen carefully, because there are moments in life that do not return in the same form again. There are moments when your heart is standing at the doorway of something it cannot yet understand, moments when heaven seems silent while something invisible is moving behind the scenes, moments when you are tempted to believe that nothing is happening simply because you cannot see it. But I want you to know something today: silence does not mean absence. Waiting does not mean rejection. Distance does not always mean the end. And what looks like nothing from where you are standing may be the beginning of everything I have been preparing in secret. This message is for you because your heart has been asking questions that you have been afraid to say out loud. You have wondered whether the person you love still thinks about you. You have wondered whether the connection you felt was real or whether you imagined its depth. You have wondered why circumstances became complicated, why conversations stopped, why certain doors closed, why someone you cared about seemed to move away when your heart was still holding on. You have wondered whether you should finally release the hope you carried quietly inside yourself. But my child, before you make a decision based only on what your eyes can see, listen to what your heart has been trying to understand. Something is changing, something is moving, something that you did not expect may soon confront the person you love with a truth they have been trying to avoid. You thought they had forgotten, you thought they had moved on. You thought their silence meant they no longer cared, but silence can hide battles that words never reveal. There are people who look completely calm while fighting an ocean of emotions inside themselves. There are people who walk away because they do not know how to handle what they feel. There are people who become distant because closeness makes them vulnerable. There are people who pretend not to care because admitting that they care would force them to confront everything they have been running from. And your soulmate may be closer to that realization than you think. Do not rush ahead of the story. Do not try to force the door open. Do not chase what I am teaching you to trust, because what is coming may not look like what you expected. You may have imagined a simple message. You may have imagined a phone call. You may have imagined an apology. You may have imagined someone suddenly appearing at your door and saying every word your heart has been waiting to hear, but sometimes the greatest surprise begins quietly. Sometimes it begins with a thought. Sometimes it begins with a memory. Sometimes it begins when someone hears a song and suddenly remembers you. Sometimes it begins when they pass a place where you once stood together. Sometimes it begins when they realize that the people around them cannot give them the peace they once felt in your presence. Sometimes it begins in the middle of an ordinary night when everything becomes quiet and the truth they avoided all day becomes impossible to escape. And my child, there may come a moment when the person you love realizes that running away from a feeling has not made the feeling disappear. They may discover that distance did not erase the connection. They may discover that time did not remove the memory. They may discover that pretending not to care did not make their heart stop caring, and that realization can change everything. But I need you to understand something important. Do not make your entire peace depend on what another person chooses to do. Your blessing is not dependent on someone else's behavior. Your destiny is not held hostage by someone's hesitation. Your worth is not measured by whether another person calls you. chooses you, understands you, or returns to you, you are already loved. You are already valuable. You are already seen. You are already known. And before you ever asked for love from another human being, you were held in a love greater than anything another person could offer. So if someone comes into your life, let them add to your joy, not become the foundation of your identity. If someone returns, let them return with honesty. If someone reaches out, let them reach out with sincerity. If someone says they miss you, let their actions demonstrate what their words claim. You do not have to beg for what is meant to be freely given. You do not have to chase what is capable of finding you. You do not have to destroy yourself trying to convince someone of your value. And you do not have to remain trapped in yesterday just because your heart remembers how yesterday felt. I am teaching you something deeper than romance. I am teaching you discernment. I am teaching you patience. I am teaching you the difference between longing and alignment. I am teaching you that love should not require you to abandon yourself. And perhaps that is why this season has felt so strange. Perhaps you thought the waiting was punishment. Perhaps you thought the silence meant you had been forgotten. Perhaps you thought the separation was proof that everything was over. But what if the separation was actually revealing what needed to be healed? What if the distance exposed wounds that closeness had hidden? What if both of you needed time to grow before you could understand what the connection was asking from you? What if the person you love needed to confront fears they never told you about? What if you needed to stop carrying the entire relationship on your shoulders? What if you needed to discover that you could survive without constantly checking for a message? What if you needed to learn that peace can exist even when you do not have an answer? My child, sometimes I remove the noise so you can finally hear yourself again. Sometimes I create distance so you can see clearly. Sometimes I allow a person to step away because you were becoming so emotionally attached to their presence that you were forgetting my presence. And sometimes, yes, I allow people to leave because their departure protects you from a future you could not yet see. But sometimes a person leaves temporarily because both hearts need transformation before reconciliation can become healthy. You must learn to hold both possibilities without fear. Do not turn hope into obsession. Do not turn faith into prediction. Do not tell yourself that every coincidence means someone is returning. Do not build an entire future around a single sign. Instead, remain open, remain grounded, remain prayerful. Let reality speak. Let character speak. Let consistency speak. Let action speak. Because when love is genuine, it does not need endless confusion to prove itself. There may be a moment coming when your soulmate does something you never expected. Perhaps they finally tell someone what they truly feel. Perhaps they admit that they have been thinking about you. Perhaps they ask about you indirectly. Perhaps they revisit an old conversation. Perhaps they look at something you once gave them. Perhaps they finally gather the courage to say the words they have been afraid to say. Perhaps they apologize. Perhaps they explain why they disappeared. Perhaps they ask for another chance. Perhaps they do something small that carries a meaning far greater than its appearance. And when that moment arrives, you may feel your heart racing. You may wonder whether this is the moment you have been waiting for. But I want you to breathe. Do not answer from desperation. answer from wisdom. Do not let the excitement of being remembered make you forget what you learned while you were alone. Do not let one beautiful sentence erase months of painful behavior. Do not confuse nostalgia with transformation. Someone can miss you without being ready for you. Someone can love you and still be unhealthy for you. Someone can regret losing you and still not know how to love you properly. That is why you must look deeper. If they return, ask yourself, have they changed? If they speak, ask yourself, are their actions consistent? If they apologize, ask yourself, do they understand what they are apologizing for? Ask yourself, are they prepared to demonstrate the promise? You are not being difficult by asking these questions. You are protecting the peace I taught you to value. My beloved child, I know you have spent nights wondering. You have stared at your phone. You have replayed conversations. You have analyzed every word. You have wondered whether a particular silence meant something. You have questioned whether you should send another message. You have wondered whether waiting made you foolish. You have asked yourself why your heart cannot simply forget, and I know there were moments when you felt embarrassed by how deeply you cared, but never be ashamed of having a tender heart. Your ability to love deeply is not weakness. Your sensitivity is not foolishness. Your capacity to believe in someone is not something you should hate about yourself. But your heart must also learn boundaries. A loving heart still needs wisdom. A forgiving heart still needs discernment. A hopeful heart still needs standards. You can love someone and still step back. You can miss someone and still choose peace. You can pray for someone and still refuse to chase them. You can forgive someone and still decide that you deserve something healthier. And if your soulmate is truly meant to walk beside you, you will not have to destroy yourself to make that happen. The love that belongs in your life will eventually meet you with effort. It will meet you with honesty. It will meet you with courage. It will meet you with responsibility. It will meet you where you are instead of continually asking you to live in uncertainty. There is something happening inside the person you love that you may not be able to see yet. They may be remembering. They may be comparing. They may be questioning. They may be realizing. They may be confronting the consequences of choices they once thought would not matter. They may have assumed you would always be there. They may have thought your patience had no limit. They may have believed that they could walk away and return whenever they wanted. But your silence may have taught them something your words could not. Your absence may have made them recognize your presence. Your growth may have shown them that you are not standing still waiting for them. And that can awaken something in a person's heart. Sometimes people understand value only after they experience its absence. Sometimes they realize what they had only after they can no longer access it so easily. Sometimes they become courageous only when they understand that hesitation has a cost. And perhaps your soulmate is approaching that realization now. But remember, my child, you are not waiting for a person to rescue you. You are not incomplete without them. You are not half a person searching for another half. You are whole enough to stand. You are whole enough to grow. You are whole enough to smile again. You are whole enough to build a beautiful life. If love comes into that life, let it be a partnership between two people who have learned how to stand individually. Let it not be two wounded people desperately clinging to each other because they are afraid to be alone. Let it be two people who choose each other freely. That is the kind of love worth waiting for. And perhaps the unexpected thing your soulmate is about to do is not simply return. Perhaps they are about to change. Perhaps they are about to make a decision. Perhaps they are about to stop listening to fear. Perhaps they are about to recognize the seriousness of losing you. Perhaps they are about to confront someone who influenced them. Perhaps they are about to reject advice that kept them confused. Perhaps they are about to take responsibility for something they once blamed on circumstances. Perhaps they are about to become honest with themselves. And sometimes the biggest movement toward you happens before they ever move physically toward you. It happens inside. The heart changes first. The mind understands second. The actions come later, so do not panic because you cannot see the action yet. People often need time between realization and action, and you need time too. You need time to become the version of yourself who can receive love without fear. You need time to stop assuming that every silence means abandonment. You need time to stop interpreting every delay as rejection. You need time to understand that not everything you lose is punishment and not everything you gain is blessing. Sometimes losing something saves you. Sometimes waiting strengthens you. Sometimes disappointment redirects you. Sometimes the closed door is the very thing that prevents you from entering a room that would have wounded you, and sometimes the door opens again because both people have finally grown enough to walk through it differently. My child, this time will not come again in exactly the same form. That is why I do not want you to waste today obsessing about tomorrow. You cannot recover every hour spent worrying. You cannot relive every conversation. You cannot rewrite every mistake. You cannot force yesterday to become different, but you can choose what you do with this moment. You can breathe. You can pray. You can release. You can forgive. You can grow. You can prepare. You can become peaceful enough to recognize what is truly for you when it arrives. Perhaps your soulmate is preparing to surprise you, but I am also preparing you to recognize the difference between a genuine blessing and an emotional temptation, because not everything that returns belongs in your future. Some things return only to test whether you have learned to say no. Some people return because they miss access to you, not because they are ready to love you. Some people return because loneliness became uncomfortable. Some people return because someone else disappointed them. Some people return because they want familiarity. And some people return because they finally understand what they lost and are genuinely ready to rebuild. Your task is not to predict which one it will be. Your task is to observe. Observe without panic. Observe without fantasy. Observe without fear. Let time reveal what words cannot. If someone is serious, seriousness eventually produces action. If someone is sincere, sincerity eventually produces consistency. If someone truly values you, that value eventually becomes visible. You do not need to force visibility. You do not need to manipulate circumstances. You do not need to create jealousy. You do not need to post things hoping someone will notice. You do not need to disappear strategically. You do not need to become someone else. Be yourself. Let your life speak. Let your peace speak. Let your growth speak. Let your silence be genuine rather than manipulative, and if someone comes back, meet them with wisdom rather than resentment. You can say, "I am glad to hear from you," without immediately handing them your entire heart again. You can listen without promising. You can forgive without forgetting the lesson. You can explore without abandoning your standards. You can love without losing yourself. This is maturity. This is growth. This is the kind of transformation I want for you, my beloved child. There is another secret you need to hear. You have been focusing so much on what your soulmate might do that you may have forgotten what you are becoming. Look at yourself. You are not the same person who cried over this situation months ago. You are not the same person who needed an immediate answer. You are not the same person who thought silence meant your life had stopped. Something inside you has strengthened. You may not notice it because growth is often quiet. You learn to wake up without the message. You learn to sleep without the reassurance. You learn to continue your day while carrying unanswered questions. You learn to smile even when something hurt. You learn that you could miss someone and still survive. You learned that your life did not end when someone walked away. And that lesson is priceless. Because now, if love returns, you will not receive it from desperation. You will receive it from choice. That changes everything. Your soulmate may be preparing something unexpected, but your greatest blessing may be the person you have become while waiting. You thought you were waiting for them. Perhaps you were also being prepared for yourself. Perhaps this season was teaching you to stop abandoning yourself whenever someone else becomes distant. Perhaps it was teaching you to stop measuring your worth through attention. Perhaps it was teaching you to stop begging for clarity from people who refuse to communicate. Perhaps it was teaching you that peace is not something another person gives you. Peace begins within. And when you finally understand that, love becomes lighter. You no longer need to control the outcome. You no longer need to know exactly when. You no longer need to demand certainty from tomorrow. You can simply say, "If this is meant for my good, let it come with peace, truth, and healthy love. If it is not, give me strength to release it." That prayer can change your heart, because it removes the desperation. It gives room for truth. It allows life to unfold without you constantly trying to control it. And my child, sometimes the unexpected thing is not that the person returns. Sometimes the unexpected thing is that you stop needing them to. Sometimes you wake up one morning and realize the ache is gone. Sometimes you see their name and your heart remains calm. Sometimes you remember everything and feel gratitude instead of pain. Sometimes you realize that what you thought was the greatest love of your life was actually the greatest lesson of your life.